Hey guys, this is Avi from Precision Physiotherapy and Hamilton Physio and Rehab. Today we'd like to talk about running injuries. One of my favorite topic to talk about. As we know, the weather's getting warmer and more people are starting to go outside and run. So very timely. And what we're going to discuss is my top favorite 5 exercises that I wish, or in fact, say every runner should do it, whether they are dealing with an injury or not, just to be able to prevent it in the first place. A huge credit and shout out to Craig Lindell, Michael Lau, and Chris Johnson. That's where this is all inspired from, and all the resources and the education that I've received from them. So running is a very repetitive, high demanding activity, and it is so much of a body force that goes into our body, and it is very much a unilateral activity where you're more often than not will always be on one foot. And hence it's really important that when we're doing these exercises we are really simulating some of these movements. Research states that 50% of the runners during their journey will always be having some or the other injuries, just because the amount of body force that everyone goes through. Now and 80 to 90% of those injuries could actually be related to overtraining. So really important that that we take care of our training part, and then see some of these things can actually be avoided. But the good news is that most of these injuries can easily be treated and solved, and in fact a lot of these injuries could be prevented in the first place as well. So here are the 5 exercises. Before we go into those 5 exercises, I'd like to talk a little few principles of running. So running has 2 components. First is propulsion, so where you are propelling forward and trying to go forward, right? And then second one is every time there is a change of a transition from one foot to another, there should be a braking pattern that should happen. So one is propulsion, the other one is braking, that needs to stop and then decelerate and then accelerate. So it's a constant motion in chain. And then when we are going through these exercises, we are channeling these 2 principles and keeping that in mind. Okay, so the first exercise would be a step up, where you're keeping one foot forward and then the other foot back, and then you're propelling. So very similar to what we talked about as a propelling of the movement, and then you're braking as you come down. So super important exercise, keeping this body nice and tall, super important. And then doing a lateral step up. So again, because it's a unilateral sort of an activity of running, so we are training on one leg more than a bilateral, like both leg at a time. So standing at the edge of a step like this and then trying to go down, and this is going to strengthen the muscles over to the outside of the hip. Also, another thing you want to ensure is your knee is not trying to go track in, and you're trying to control this movement. As and when you might lose a little bit of a balance, the slower you do this movement, the more control you have, and super helpful and important. The second exercise would be squat variation. This would be your at the back and then standing in this way, and you're trying to lower yourself down as much as possible. Now, I've got some 10 pounds of dumbbells here, and you can always add or increase the weight the way that you are training. So for example, if you're training for a short sprint, like that's what I love to do, so then you get more heavy weights. And if you're an endurance runner, like a marathon or something that you're planning for, then of course you can add more weights and or less weights and more increase amount of repetition, or increase length of the time that you want to do this for. So the third exercise, this comes straight from Chris Johnson, and he likes to call this as prisoner's calf raises. So keeping one foot on a step or a height like this, and then you are raising your calf and then slowly lowering yourself down. You can always add some more weights and dumbbell weights behind, so then it's taking you back. The idea is that there should not be any weight going on to the front part of your body, and all the entire weight is on the back leg, and then you're slowly going up and down that, and just load and increase the repetition as much as you can. The fourth one would be a soleus raise. So soleus is so when we say calf, most people think about calf as this, but calf has actually two muscles. One is this big giant muscle, and then there is a smaller muscle up here that attaches to the Achilles and then goes back to the back of your heel. Now this soleus is one of the most important muscle for runners. Every runner I talked about. In fact, there is so much research out there that if you have a strong and if you trained your soleus really well, then there are very less likelihood of you developing any sort of Achilles tendinopathy, and in some cases even plantar fasciitis cases as well, so those heel pain problem. Okay, so what you want to do is work on those soleus, and you're going to stand at the edge of the step with your knees bent, super important. And see, I'm tending to lose a little balance here, and then you want to just go up and then slowly lower yourself down. You can start off this and then graduate yourself to be able to do this on just one foot. Super important. And then you can challenge yourself by adding some weights to that, but knee bent is really important. And then you are raising your heel up and then slowly lowering it down and maintaining a good core control and keeping as tall and as high as possible. Now I will talk about the fifth exercise. So like we said, running is such a high load activity that gravity would always wanting to pull you down, and what you want to do is then you want to try and keep as straight, as tall as possible, so that you're always working against the gravity and keeping them high. So that's why these exercises, once you train your body really well, it will help you run a lot longer as well, and then prevent any sort of undue forces on certain more body part which is more prone to get hurt or injured. So this fifth exercise, I really love doing this because again, with running there's so much loading going on to our bones, our joints, our muscles, and you are simulating that sort of a loading work by doing these exercises, because all the weight that goes onto the bones, you are actually releasing it's like a fracture, right? After you've fractured your bone, you're trying to load that specific bone or a joint in your rehab so that there is release of osteoblast cells, which help bone growth and cartilage growth as well. So similar thing, that more load you're putting on your body so that your bones getting a little stronger and hence less chances of injury. So loaded carry, up and nice tall, and then you're almost doing marches with it. There's so many different variations to this. After you've done them, you could always try and do this on a tippy toes as well, and that will increase the load even further. And then I call this as a creepy walk as well. So just being in this sort of a bent knee position, going on your tippy toes, and then doing this sort of a walk, and that actually burns if you do that really for a longer period of a time. So here are my 5 exercises. Give me a shout out and let me know that what are some of your favorite exercises. I'd love to hear from you and learn from you guys as well. We're all here in the same community and be able to help each other out.